Right.
Nemo, over to you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shall we roll the video? Do I?
Well, do you want to do a couple of plugs while you...
Oh yeah. I mean, I can. I can tell people again. You should buy The Prophets of Doom.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be another best-selling book.
There you go. There's...
You can also buy courses at the academic agency. I mean, the academy now, as it stands, the actual universities, increasingly they're teaching people what to think and not how to think. And all of my courses, especially if you do the trivium, how to write, how to think using logic and reason and evidence, how to construct an argument through clear writing, and then the third course, which is Foundations of Rhetoric, the third part of the trivium, goes right back to Aristotle and establishes, all of the tricks they used to use, the sophists and all of that.
Yeah. Well, it was considered a form of magic.
But then it brings it right up to date with people like Jonathan Haidt and Daniel Kahneman and...
Well, the trivium used to be fundamental.
Yeah, the backbone of a classical education.
People did the trivium for hundreds of years. In fact, they were still doing it up until about the 1950s. And one of the things I found when I was writing the trivium is that a lot of the textbooks were from the Victorian era, and they expected 12-year-old kids to know this stuff, right? So, I mean, if you're ambitious, you could get this for your 12-year-old. And, if you want to talk about progress and decline, if your 12-year-old can do my trivium, they're up to speed with where like a kind of public school boy from 1912 would be or something like that. So, I've tried to, obviously I need to make a living. So, and this is the main way I do it. But also, like, of the thousands of people now who've done these courses, it's helping basically fill in what our education system is not doing not doing for us. And I have known people, funny enough, about the dating thing. Somebody did the trivium, Foundations of Writing in particular, and it said it helped me get a girl because she wrote to him and said, it's refreshing that somebody was writing in full sentences. So he actually pulled. Well, I'm not going to guarantee that.
Zuma saved.
I'm just saying that, But more likely, if you're at university or something, if you're a student, it should help you at least, at the very least, state your essays.
With an outside chance of tail.
With a very distant outside chance of some tail as well. Yeah.
One confirmed case is good enough.
Okay.
Right. Can we get to the video then, please, John?
Oh yeah, by Prophets of Doom as well.
Yes. When is it out? Is it out?
I think that is out at the end of the 5th of September, which is next week.
Okay.
So if you put in a pre-order now to Amazon or you buy it there, you should get it through the... I mean, some people have, I think, already started receiving their copies. So it's kind of out, basically.
I just want to say one thing I really like about Evola is he looks like an actual vampire.
What's funny is that I got this... when I got my author copies, my wife picked up this book and she looked at them. She was like, what is this? Is this like a tea party from hell? Or something? And I said to her, out of all of them, who would you go for a tea party? Who would you invite over? And she ended up saying Toynbee because he just kind of looks like a
little old English gentleman.
And that's what he was. He was a little old English.
It wouldn't be Carlisle, would it?
Yeah.
But look at Evola and Speng.
Yeah. They look like actual monsters from Frankenstein and Dracula.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, literally. Anyway, right. Let's go to the
Let's have a look at the video.
We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of Brics. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
It's official. The world has changed forever. A new conservative age has officially arrived, and it happened officially just now at the Brics Summit. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, make sure to share this video with friends and family. We are once again, unfortunately, being throttled by big tech, so I need your help to get the...
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Right.
So the BRICS, it was a grouping of Brazil,
Yeah.
Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
Mhm.
And they have just announced that they're taking on Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. So basically, a lot of oil has just moved into this block.
So as I understand it, this is kind of an economic block in particular to set up a sort of a new currency or something.
Well, I think that's a sub-project of it.
Right.
But
No, I mean
But a
they,
bank.
they're just going to they cooperate with each other in a trade partnership. But what's very clear about this is that, of course, it's China and Russia. India's got a population of 1 billion people plus. South Africa is a huge market.
But I can't help but notice that what this is a massive block of non-Western countries,
Yes,
non-American. Yeah.
no Europe, and this. I guess there's two things. First, this is a huge development.
Yeah.
It's a
Yes.
complete realignment of the world order because India and South Africa in particular are meant to be our allies. They're meant to be allies of the West.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Saudi Arabia is meant to be the sort of the satrapy of the US that their whole currency system is based on.
And Saudi Arabia has been
Yeah.
playing exactly this role up until very recently.
Yeah, when
And now they're getting into bed with Iran, Saudi Arabia. Who else was there? Argentina.
Egypt, Ethiopia.
So this is huge because
Oh,
this
yeah.
is like, I mean, Putin is isolated in the world. I mean,
Yeah, he's isolated with nothing but all of the world's resources and population.
right. So
Yeah.
this is a major L for
Yeah.
the global American empire, as we call
Yeah.
it. That's one part of it. The second part of it, though, is how do we, as people who generally oppose what we call the regime, pass this? And the reason I wanted to bring up Dr. Steve Turley here, who's a great guy.
The venerable.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I like. He's probably my favorite YouTube channel. I genuinely gives me joy to watch.
I love the energy
because
yeah.
I'm kind of quite realist and a bit downbeat sometimes. He's just so optimistic about everything.
It is the unstoppable rise of a nuclear.
Yeah, it's unstoppable. And he makes you feel good. It's dopamine.
Yes.
But he does sometimes. He wants to see everything in a lens of the woke versus the conservatives, which is a very kind of like US culture war. way-
Unstoppable conservative progress trends. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things I worry about is that using that lens, it can almost kind of trip you into siding with people who may not have our best interests at heart. Right. Now, the Communist Party of China, Vladimir Putin, the Islamic Republic of Iran, like this is the new based.
Well, he's basically just looked at it and said the Western globalist elite is my enemy, and then he's gone, the enemy of the enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
China is my friend.
Now, one of the things that is interesting, in fact, one of the speakers at the event mentioned this as well, is that if you have a look at the sort of things they're saying in this bloc, the BRICS countries, especially when the Niger thing happened, but also more recently, a lot of their rhetoric is actually quite anti-Western. And it's not just, we don't like your woke values. It is a complete rejection of the idea of, it's anti-colonial, it's third worldist. It's kind of, it's our time now, and Europe, it's old and it's over and it's done.
But it's not,
Right.
and it's not anti-Western people. It's anti-Western modes of thinking and governing, and
But yeah, and also anti-Western influence around the world. Okay. Now, the thing is that if you have a look at the sort of things they're saying, it's actually not a million miles away from the sort of stuff that Ash Sakar would say, or the sort of stuff that a critical race theorist would say. And so you have a very strange scenario where our internal enemy, if you want to put it that way, and our external enemy are saying the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're both basically Marxists. So
And also, like, they're against each other, which is an odd part of this. But it's we who are kind of, we have to remember, I think, that even though the external enemy are the same, are against our internal enemy, they think the same sort of things. And I think some people get a bit carried away with my based Putin,
Yeah,
understand what I'm saying?
And there are a lot of people who do this because Putin, I think, is very savvy. So I don't support Russia or Vladimir Putin, blah, blah, blah. I've got no interest in Russia. I've never been there and I don't care about it. But there's no question that Putin is an effective ruler. And one of the ways in which he's effective is in his rhetoric. He knows that the West will hear when he says, I'm not going to let you transition children in Russia. Like he knows we hear that. And he knows that the MAGA base, the conservatives, are just like, oh, well, I agree with that. And so it creates a kind of fracture within our own.
He's basically the only cultural conservative world leader.
Yeah, he is.
Apart from one or two, yeah.
The one that's especially vocal and speaks in a way that we understand.
I've been reading a lot of stuff written around the time or just after World War II recently by many different writers, guys who served in the military, American and British. And I think one of the things that we've lost over time is the idea of thinking as Europeans or as British people, as against the interests of America on the one hand and as Russia on the other. And at that time, it was very common to see Europe caught between essentially two enemies that didn't really have the best interests of the people in mind, who had a similar anti-colonial, anti-European thesis. And it's kind of interesting how this dynamic has reared its head again. And I guess the reason I'm bringing this up in this way is that I think sooner or later we're going to have to start thinking like, well, if this American ship is going to go down, are we going to let them take us down with them? Or do we want to start standing on our own feet again and thinking of our interests again?
Britain joins the Brics.
Not Britain, I mean, it's not like, oh, we join the Russians or we join. It's how do we get a sense of entering world history ourselves again? Because there's an argument to say that after World War II, Europe has taken a time out. We've not been, I mean, I remember the neocon thesis. They talked about Europe living in a postmodern paradise, but America has to be in the world of power.
Well, we've been there, but on the US's leash. So we have reliably backed. So Britain, I'm talking about particularly, we reliably backed them up for whichever war they wanted to do. So we have sort of been there, but not. We just haven't been.
Not only that, we've also towed our weight as well. Like one of the 2% GDP on the military, things like that. We've actually been a very reliable partner in this.
Is it partner or is it cheerleader?
Well, very very reliable satrapy.
Right.
We've like we're somewhere that if this was the Roman Empire, like sort of Spain was always very reliable on raising levies, right, for the army. Right, you could always raise men in Spain. We're that kind of place where we're pro the empire.
And I guess the question is, at what point do Europeans start saying being part of this empire is starting to suck?
Well, since the Americans just screwed them royally with their actions towards Russia, they surely are looking at this and going, "Well, hang on a second,
Nord Stream. I mean, it's just it's naked at this point.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that it's kind of this frame almost obscures what I'm trying to say here, which is that actually you need to see this as two different powers who are both trying to screw you in different ways, and we have to think like at some point we're going to need to stand on our own.
This is the old classic Henry Kissinger quote, isn't it? That it is dangerous to be an enemy of the US, but it's fatal to be a friend. And America will always betray its friends, and we have been in there so close and so tight. Our moment of betrayal probably hasn't come yet, but it will.
Well, who was it? It was from like Cecil Rhodes or someone who was just like, England doesn't have friends or enemies, any interests. That's what the world hegemon has.
And this is part of the issue, is because unlike British Empire, which yes, it did have its civilizing mission and so on, but at base it was pretty practical and it was pragmatic in the way it went about things. The American Empire, it's always it's been increasingly ideological. Why are these countries turning towards China and the Chinese sphere of influence? And it's because in the case of Iran, right, the Americans have just said, if you trade with them, we'll boicott you. You trade with,
Oh, it's been way worse.
I mean, it's kind of
Hillary Clinton has always been, let's invade Iran.
Yeah. So on the Iranian side, it's just like, they have no other choice but to go with it. But if you think of some of these other countries there, they don't want. It's like, oh yeah, we'll trade with you, but also it comes with all of these conditions attached. Tony Blair will come in and help build a school, but it has to be a feminist school, and you have to have gay rights and all this sort of stuff. So this part of the analysis of Turley is actually true. This is why this bloc is growing, not because the Russians and the Chinese are. They're basically just going to say, you give us oil, we'll give you stuff.
Yes.
And it doesn't come
and,
with...
and we don't need to give you a lecture. We don't need to... Can we call up the image of the droid Floyd thing? I mean, this is the... This is the sort of the key example.
John, I'll let you do it, John.
It's on the end. But, America goes out. It spreads democracy by the bullet and the bomb.
Yeah, the George Floyd mural in Africa.
Yeah, it's the last one, John.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. But basically, you've got to push the agenda. You've got to put up the pride flag. You've got to have an image of George Floyd, put on your wall. And this is in Kabul.
Yeah, this is one of the first things that the Taliban painted over as well.
Yeah,
it means nothing to people.
I mean, look, that guy walking under. What does he? Why is there an African man with "I can't breathe" on my wall?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm afraid to say, the more America becomes identified with, Lizzo and George Floyd and social justice and pride, which have become symbols of the American empire, the more countries are just going to turn away because they don't want to be told. And what China is doing, which is different from the first, because they're calling this Cold War II, what China is doing that is different from what the Soviet Union used to do, is they're not trying to spread communism. They're not trying to say, we trade with you and it comes at the price of, you have to put the hammer and sickle up. They're purely doing it on this pragmatic basis, much like old-fashioned British.
What they're doing is useful stuff. Would you like an airport? Would you like something else? Would you like a dollar-denominated loan? And by the way, if you don't pay back the dollar-denominated loan, well, we're going to have those oil reserves or that bauxite mine or whatever it is.
Yeah. And they've done that around the world as well. I mean, I think that was it Sri Lanka, or where basically if you default, it's just like, okay, that land's mine now, and this is now Chinese territory, and they've done that all over.
That's Australia, let alone Sri Lanka,
all across the sort of Indian Ocean. That sort of, I mean, literally the Belt and Road thing is a bunch of like deep water harbors and things like that. They're all connecting together. I watched a video on it the other day. I was like, Jesus Christ, how's America let this happen?
The other thing the Chinese will do, which is very interesting, is that America, they'll go to a place like Iraq. They'll say, "Oh, it's very important that we're not seen as conquerors. We're going to establish a liberal democracy here, and it has to be Iraqi." And then they actually mean it. They actually do it that way. Whereas the Chinese, they'll sign a deal, and they'll be like, "Oh, we're going to build something here. We're going to build infrastructure," and they won't hire local contractors.
No, they ship them in.
They literally bring the entire workforce, all Chinese. In fact, my dad told me about this when they were even in Wales, when they were taking apart an old plant that was there. They literally came in a shipping container, stayed in the container, didn't see anyone, and took all the stuff back bit by bit, cleaned it up, took it bit by bit, and literally shipped it all back to China. So they kind of keep it in house as an old-fashioned, almost extractive colonial empire, if you want to put it that way. But in a way, that works. I mean, it's worked all through history. So why wouldn't they do it?
Should we go back to Steve Turley?
Or do we need? Well, I think the point is basically made here that I mean, you can watch the video in your own time, but the basic point is made that I think it's very easy for people on our side to get a bit too caught up in all of this and end up almost making the third worldist point on their behalf. Yeah. And for example, later on in this video, one of the people he cites is also a chap who goes on a channel I watch a lot called The Duran, called Jackson Hinkle. If you have a look at Jackson Hinkle, he's basically a old-fashioned Marxist. He'd have voted for.
He's
Corbyn.
A George Galloway type,
or a Galloway type, and this is the danger when it comes to geopol, because you end up inadvertently advancing an enemy's agenda as opposed to something that would be beneficial to. Because ultimately, what we want to do is we want to help the people out in that high street we just saw.
Yeah.
Not what they're planning in Beijing or something, you know.
Yeah. But we don't have a presence in this fight. We have been so thoroughly subjugated. We are dissidents effectively. So there is no one else that you can sort of throw your weight behind if you're looking to talk about geopolitical actions.
Yeah, who do you feel represents you? And the answer is nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody represents.
I mean, I like that Putin is advocating the interests of his people. But they're not my people. But
I would expect him to. But
yes.
why can't we have
that? Yeah.
Why can't we have one of our national leaders?
I think it's worth saying as well that, if you remember, Brexit was meant to be about making Britain sovereign again.
Yeah.
Okay. But sovereignty is basically the power to determine whether you enter wars or not, whether you choose your own course or not.
It's decision-making power. You don't always have a choice whether you're going to enter a war or not.
But you understand what I'm saying, right? If Rishi Sunak decided, actually, we're going to diverge massively from the State Department in Washington, just as he was installed, he will be removed if that happened.
I don't think the idea would ever cross his mind.
Of course, because he's a safe pair of hands as far as they're concerned when it comes to that. And I think that is something that, just because Brexit happened doesn't mean that fight is necessarily won yet, because actual sovereignty means the ability to determine the course of your own nation's destiny. And as the situation worsens, I think people around Europe can start thinking like this more and more. As an inevitable, really, this is the true meaning of the AfD in Germany, for example, or Le Pen, or I hesitate to say Maloney, Salvini, certainly in Italy. Is this.
But effectively, what you're saying is the further flung satrapies have already begun this program. So the Saudi Arabia and the India, they have already got off the bandwagon.
The frontiers have started to fall away, and you were talking about this earlier on, Carl.
Yeah.
When an empire starts to fall apart, it's always the frontier that goes first. But we're talking about
major provinces just start breaking away. And I mean, Saudi's joining this is just, if I were the Americans, I'd be like, how have we let this happen?
Oh, that is a major.
We were the thing that propped up the Saudi monarchy for 80 years or something. How can they feel confident enough to defect from us?
I tell you, I hate to bring this back to low personal politics, but Donald Trump, right? When he got on the blower, he was an old-fashioned salesman, and he built up a rapport, and he got to know guys, right? Joe Biden
berates them,
right? What's his name? MBS.
Yeah, Joe Biden wouldn't even shake his hand.
Joe Biden personally insulted MBS, and he's not forgotten that. And this is just old-fashioned diplomacy.
Well, do you not remember 6 months ago, Biden tried to have a call with the Saudi king, and he refused him. You don't do that.
Of course, he's been rude.
You don't do that. The emperor has just arrived. You put on a full procession for him. Nope, not today.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, why not visit our website, where you can watch the podcast live, uncensored, in full, and for free from 1 o'clock UK time every weekday. And while you're there, for as little as £5 a month, you can get access to all of our premium content, including Josh's eclectic series, Contemplations, where in this episode he continues his coverage of cults by discussing Osho with Bo and Stelios. And if you'd like to see the rest of what we're putting out, you can follow Josh on Twitter at @JoshFirm, and the rest of us over at @LotusEaters_com. Till next time, goodbye.